Good evening and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. It's truly my pleasure to be here. First, I'd like to thank Steve for inviting me to this evening. I'd like to start my address with a quote. Just because you do not take an interest in politics doesn't mean that politics won't take an interest in you. That was from Hercules, a prominent Greek statesman from the 5th century BC. There was a new teacher. She wanted to get to know the children, their names and a bit about themselves. So she said, "We are going to go around the room and tell me your name and what your father does." A little girl stood up. She said, "My name is Mary and my dad is a fireman." The second child said, "My name is John and my dad is a train driver." The new teacher then goes to the third child and he says, "My name is Nathan and my dad is a drug dealer." With this, the teacher gasped. She did not know what to do, so she said, "Okay, we'll leave it there." So time goes by and they go to the playground for recess. She pulls little Nathan aside and asks, "Is your dad really a drug dealer?" He replies, "My dad is a politician and I'm embarrassed to tell people that." Hopefully, after tonight you will realise that the Palmer United Party is fresh blood and different to what we are used to. And we are giving you a viable alternative in the next election. Now a bit about myself. My parents came from Europe as part of the Snowy Mountains scheme. They worked hard and loved this country which offered them hope and opportunity. As a first-generation Australian, I can relate with the Barton electorate, which is composed of a diversity of cultures, whose peoples underwent similar adjustments as migrants and children of migrants. I grew up not far from here. I was a fat kid, but I was determined to do something about this. I started by just walking around Bexley. Then I started walking up and down the steps near Bexley Public School on Forest Road. I did this about 20 times each occasion. I built myself up enough to start running. I ran from Bexley to Brighton Sands and back. I ran from Bexley through Arncliffe, across to Walleye Creek, up Elwood, down Bardwell Park and back to Bexley. I ran through Bexley North to Campsie. I also ran from Bexley through Beverly Hills, then to Hurstville. These I did many, many times. The point I'm trying to make is that I've traversed on foot much of the Barton electorate, and I have a closeness to it. I have been involved in a number of community services on a voluntary basis. A big part of my nature is to go out of my way to help individual people wherever I can. I've worked in many areas, including being a registered nurse, a trained radiographer. I was a lecturer for the University of Sydney for over 20 years in medical radiation sciences. Approximately 5 years ago, I took voluntary redundancy to stay with my mother in Bexley to look after her. Finally, about 2 years ago, I placed Mum in a nursing care facility. I stayed in her home, which allowed me to visit her every day. In June this year, I rented Mum's home to help pay for her accommodation fees. Currently, I'm working as an IT teacher at Parramatta College. I am a family man. I've been married for 27 years with 2 adult children. I now live in Hornsby. However, I often come back, either to visit my mother at Bexley or to play table tennis, which I continue to enjoy at St George Leagues Club, Cogra RSL and Ramsgate Senior Citizens Centre. I understand the issues and feel what you feel. I choose to be a representative in this area because I am passionate to give back to the community that nurtured me. Another quote. A change is brought about because ordinary people do extraordinary things. Barack Obama. So, who is Clive Palmer? The world knows Clive as the billionaire who is building Titanic 2 and creating Jurassic Park. Although this is correct, it doesn't paint the whole picture. Clive started from absolutely nothing. His mother was a housewife and father started out as a journalist. He started up the radio 3AK in Melbourne, which was Australia's first commercial radio. Clive was born in Melbourne. His family moved to Queensland, where he was largely raised on the Gold Coast. His personal story is a colourful and intriguing one. As a child, Clive stayed in China for 6 to 9 months. His father was there because he had a lot of compassion and concern for, at the time, 300 million Chinese people were potentially facing famine. Through his father, Clive was introduced to Bob Menzies and Joe Bioki-Peterson. Clive went into real estate in 1974, and by the time he was 21, he made quite a bit of money for those days because he was one of the best salesmen. In 1984, he established Mineralogy, his minerals company, and he took over the large iron ore deposits in Western Australia. Then, in 2008, Palmer bought Waratah Coal, and in 2009, he purchased Queensland Nickel. Clive was married for the second time in 2007. Their relationship is a love story of joy rediscovered from tragedy. Mr. Palmer and his first wife, Sue, had been married 22 years when she died of cancer in 2005. Clive's daughter Emily was 10, and it was a big challenge for him to raise her up as a single parent. Anna, Clive's second wife, lost her first husband, Andrew Topolov, to melanoma at about the same time of Sue's passing. Andrew was one of Mr. Palmer's closest friends. Clive and Anna found comfort and understanding in each other during their grief and fell in love. Mr. Palmer has 3 children, 2 to Sue. They are Michael, 23, and Emily, who is now 18. 1 to Anna. Her name is Mary, and she is 5. Plus, there's another on the way. Mr. Palmer's previous activity in politics was as a member of the National Party from 1974 to 2008, then on to the Liberal National Party in 2008 to 2012. In these groups, he was a financial donor and a policy contributor. When you hear him speak, one of the things you realise is that he has compassion. He emphasises that Australia has the highest world rate of infant mortality in the Aboriginal population. Clive is devoted to reducing this statistic. This is just the tip of the iceberg describing Clive's life. To put it in a nutshell, Clive is a business genius. He is hugely charitable and a philanthropist. Mark Twain once said, "Loyalty to country always, loyalty to government when it deserves it." Do you think we should continue having people occupying our highest office who have no experience in running large corporations or large businesses or large enterprises, but running Australia's $1.5 trillion economy and looking to say what we should be doing at this critical time? Clive can do better. He has the experience and the runs on the board. He has the talent, ability and achievement. The Palmer United Party is making this federal election a debate about ideas for our nation, where we should go and what we should do. We are not interested in being involved with other politicians' pie-in-the-sky dreams. We are about actually making change in this country and providing employment and a real future and a real aspiration for our people. Clive formed this party because he believes he can offer a better service to the community than anyone else. He is not seeking anything for himself. He has all he wants. He is seeking wealth and enrichment for Australian people. He wants them to have a better life and to have a high standard of living. We believe that what's important about politics is not what politicians say, but that politicians actually listen to people's needs, then try to meet them. Our attitude is that we are public servants and we will be contributing to the country that we love. Let's look at the big issues and what makes the Palmer United Party different. When you go into the polling stations later on this year, hold your hand up and look at your palm. This is to prompt you to remember the Palmer United Party. And the fingers represent the 5 major policies which makes that party unique. Policy number 1, stop lobbyists being part of political parties. Both major political parties say the same thing. They have lobbyists influencing them and they have the same focus groups. Lobbying firms in Australia have a former member of the Labor Party and a former member of the Liberal Party, so it doesn't matter who is in government. If someone gives them, say, $1 million, then they will give that company or director the results they want. For example, a foreign corporation may come out here and pay. Then they expect the outcome they paid for. Do you think they would be happy to hand $1 million and not get their outcome? We do not think this is democratic, and we will end it. We say ban political lobbyists and from becoming party officials, therefore saving taxpayers' dollars and introducing fair policies that will benefit Australians and Australia, and not skewed to those that will be paying the big bucks. It doesn't matter if they're Labor or Liberal. The people miss out. We need to think about what people need. Policy 2, end the carbon tax. Unlike income tax, which is a scaled progressive tax, the carbon tax is a regressive tax which hits everyone the same, regardless of their ability to afford it. This is unfair and must be stopped. Australians are doing it tough. Yet one thing is for certain, and that is your bills still keep coming in. We will make it easier on individuals' pockets, not only by removing the carbon tax, but by getting a refund for the monies that have already been paid, which were a result of this tax. Before I go on to the next policy, I just want to remind you that as recent as last Tuesday night, a boat with asylum seekers capsized in the rough seas of the North Christmas Island, claiming 4 lives. Policy 3, stop the illegal boats from leaving their shores. We will revise the current Australian government's refugee policy to ensure Australia is protected and refugees are given opportunities for a better future and a better lifestyle. Our policy ends the arrival of boats to our shores, the people smugglers' trade, the deaths at sea, and the unnecessary jailing of the refugees. All Australians want a secure Australia. Illegal entry into Australia will be addressed by deterring refugees coming in on leaky boats. The Palmer Australia Party will allow a person to fly into Australia at a reasonable cost rather than pay the thousands of dollars to people smugglers. Then at the airport, because passports are required on planes, processing claims will take a matter of hours. It will be determined if they have a rightful entry into the country, resulting in genuine refugees being allowed into Australia. If they are not at risk of harm in their own country, then they are sent back on the next flight. Another benefit is that we will be closing the offshore jails, which will save over $5 billion annually. Policy number 4, process our minerals onshore. We will create mineral wealth to continuously contribute to the welfare of the Australian community. This is to be achieved by utilising the mineral resources of Queensland and Western Australia and incentives from the Commonwealth of Australia to establish downstream processing in the states of Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia. Processing is where the bulk of the money is made in minerals. This will allow the exporting of products at a high dollar value, thereby creating more revenue, jobs and more facilities benefiting Australians. Not only that, Australia will benefit from the increase of total taxation received by all from minerals. Policy number 5. Taxation from an economic area will be reinvested back into that area. Establishing a system where people create wealth in various parts of the country and for that wealth to flow back into the community that generates the wealth. For example, if a particular region creates wealth, a significant percentage of that wealth should go back to that region. This ensures that money taxed from each local economy gets directly paid back into infrastructure for that zone. Let's take the Sydney CBD. It's Australia's most significant urban economy with over $100 billion being generated annually. Our policy will guarantee additional money for such needed projects across the CBD, easing congestion for the residents and the workers. Okay, now let's get closer to home. Let me touch on 2 issues, one related to business and one related to health. for business. The fringe benefit tax is a 46.5% deterrent to employers. Business people are staying in their office and not taking clients and business associates out to lunch, which is where the majority of business is done. This hurts business. The FBT has crumbled the restaurant and cafe lunch trade, hurting their business. We will reinvigorate the hospitality trade and not only stop this unjust tax, but allow the tax deduction of business expenses. This unjust tax needs to change, and if elected, we will immediately abolish the fringe benefit tax on entertainment. For health, we will stop the cutbacks to St George Hospital, which have resulted in the reduction of life-saving operations and the reduction in hospital beds. Not only will the Palmer United Party give New South Wales $18 billion for health, but if elected, we will ensure the state government will inject these monies back into health and hospital services. Okay, I know the state government have finally upgraded St George, finally started to upgrade St George Hospital, but this was after much public protest. We will keep them honest. The final quote. You've got to vote for someone. It's a shame, but it's got to be done. Whoopi Goldberg. We are a party that will unite all Australians in this time of crisis to work together. We want the best for the community. I support the Palmer United Party because I believe all Australians need and deserve a true democratic voice. Mr Palmer is a genuine leader who can relate well with all demographics of community, promoting the Commonwealth with society inclusion. We at the Palmer United Party are not a party of lobbyists, vested interest and career politicians, but a team of real people with real jobs, real families and real concerns about others. If you're happy, if you're satisfied with everything that's being done now, then you can vote again for Kevin Rudd and Tony Abbott. But if you believe, as I do, that Australia can do more, that the citizens of Australia are entitled to a bigger dividend, then you should give the Palmer United Party your vote. We think we can do better. The other major parties have had their chance and failed. Vote for me and the Palmer United Party with fresh ideas. We are truly there to support Australia and Australians. As I mentioned at the start, I was a fat kid. I didn't mention that I lost 40 kilos. This was done by pure motivation and determination. I will use that same effort to represent Barton for the coming term. If you wish to support the Palmer United Party, there should be an application form in front of you on the back of that paper. If you want to approach me, if you don't have one, then I'll give you one. If you want to do it today, then complete the form and I can issue with a receipt immediately. If you don't want to join the party but you want to help out on election day to hand out how to vote cards, then please see me. I'll take your details and we'll keep in contact. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'd like to thank Stephen again for the invitation. I'll be happy to take questions.